Hello, my name is Jasmin Agustin, and this is my 5 things project from the readings this course has assigned. So, 3 of these 5 things are going to be from the Book of Learning and Forgetting by Frank Smith, and the remaining 2 things will be from Drive by Daniel Pink. So, okay, I'm reading off of a list I have. So, the first thing that I would like to highlight from Frank Smith's book is the mood and tone it sets with the reader immediately from the preface. So, a lot of college assigned readings are written with an aura and lexicon of superiority that would make a middle schooler cry just looking at it. So, this book, however, is written in a way that feels like it could be read to an elementary schooler, like a fifth grader. I feel like I could read this to my little sister. So, Smith writes, but if you relax and simply read the book for interest, you'll probably enjoy it more, learn more than you expect, and be less likely to forget points that are most relevant to you. And then this is F. Smith, 1998, Book of Learning and Forgetting, page 8, I believe. So Smith intentionally wrote his work to be this way, as pieces like this are a great way to be able to introduce advanced concepts to the younger education and also the newer generation. Yeah. Um, the second thing is Frank Smith's analysis of the classical learning of a child. So the way he was able to scientifically define and criticize some outdated theories on it was phenomenal, and I pretty much agree with him 100%. So Smith writes, but whoever tried to teach us any of these brackets rules from culture. So how could they teach us if we asked them to? How could we set about deliberately learning them for ourselves? This is all learning without awareness, without effort, without guidance or direction. Learning without knowing that we are learning, what we are learning, or what have we learned. It is learning from a classical point of view. So this is F. Smith, 1998, Book of Learning and Forgetting, page 16. So there is much more importance in classical theory of learning in a student's childhood, but Smith also states that there can be so much learning that can take place if this is proved upon in a healthy way, and that's what the official theory for learning is about. Which my last thing. So the last third thing about Frank Smith's work in general is his historical connection to the modern classical school structure for from the Persian army. I think I'm saying it right. It is a common notion that today's classrooms originate from prison and military infrastructure, which is how public schools end up feeling most of the time for some students. So Smith describes that the Persian recruitment tactic of selecting, and then this is the quote, so recruits of the same age, height, weight, and experience, put them into separate barracks, subjugate, subject them to remorseless discipline and drill, throw out the ones who couldn't make it, and forge a total standardized, predictable, and reliable product, the Persian soldier. Now, if that doesn't sound like any type of military school or gosh darn private school, I don't know what is. So, or advanced school, that's what it is. And this is F. Smith, 1998, The Book of Learning and Forgetting, page 47. So, it's just horrible to think about like what these people were being subjected to in the name of war and during those times, and the fact that it's still happening today. But I'm glad that he doesn't shy away from it. He also doesn't shy away from letting it be known that schools still do this, starting from kindergarten, even going as far as university, where it doesn't even stop there. It just is in a different way now. So I agree with Smith's prediction that all of this is all of this is just what all of this is doing is making learning harder for kids, and we should instead remodel schools based on the official theory for learning, which is like, you know, I really want to be able to model my classrooms like that as well. And speaking of modeling classrooms, um, or environment spaces like that. So, fourth thing, starting with Daniel Pink's book, is that I would like to talk about the type I and type X personalities of humans that he wrote about in his book that really caught my eye. I really thought it was interesting. So, he compares and contrasts how they function in the work, school, and personal lives, and what they value, how they both value pretty much the same things, it's just how they approach it differently. And one thing is not more than the other. It's just like, actually, one thing is more than the other, but it's not just about that. It's just saying generally, this is how it is. So, so like I said, it reminded me of the popular personality A and personality B types that you see in pop media and stuff. But Pink states that the world has fostered an environment that is overly dependent on type X traits, and there's hardly any space where type I can grow anymore, especially in schools. Then Pink writes, quote, type I behavior promotes greater physical and mental well-being. According to a raft of studies from SDT researchers, people oriented towards autonomy and intrinsic motivation have higher self-esteem, better interpersonal relationships, and greater general well being than those who are extrinsically motivated, like type X. Um, by contrast, people whose core aspirations are type X validations, such as money, fame, or beauty, tend to have poor psychological health. This is D. Pink, 2009, Drive, Chapter 3, page 30 in the PDFs that you uploaded in Canvas. It didn't have page numbers, so it's like the 30th page. Um, so I agree with Pink that the road to this change is not going to be fast and easy, but it's still necessary, and we might as well get started now. And the road to changing type X. Um, that's moving on to the fifth. That's actually what the final thing is about. My fifth thing is Daniel Pink's work on or introducing the not introducing, but talking about the concept of the 20% autonomous period within the results only work environment, or ROW for short. So, the high schools that I taught in had this 30-minute period at the end of one class per day, where it's structured in the very, very similar way of the 20% autonomous period. Well, a high school version of it, because you can't have kids not coming to class and stuff, but without so I thought it was super neat when I was reading about it. I was like, wait, this is what we have in high school. Oh my gosh. So because before I entered high school, I had an older sibling in high school that they didn't have this, right? They didn't have this. And when I entered high school, they introduced it that year, and I thought it was just gonna be like a one time thing. I was like, oh, maybe it's just for a year, maybe it's just. But then, like now that I'm out of high school, and this was during COVID year too. They got rid of it during COVID year, but um, when I got out of high school, I found out that for my younger siblings who attended high school, they're like, oh, they brought back that period where it's like they let you do what you want, not what you want, but where they bring back the end of the period thingies. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I come to find that that's actually a whole district high school thing that everybody's doing it. And then when I was starting to teach or assist over in the high schools here in Pitt County, I found that that's the basic standard now. It's everywhere, and it's all for North Carolina public schools, and I really, really like that. And so this very beneficial concept, I believe, was born under type I motivations. And because it's like, this is exactly what he was talking about in the book. I included it into the thing, but basically, teachers are not allowed to assign any work during this period. They have to let the students work on whatever they'd like to work during. They do have to work, no slacking off. They're allowed to slack off if they are ahead of the class, and they're even allowed to go to their own club meetings if they have finished all their work and are doing well, or if they'd like assistance with work, teachers are or teaching assistants are allowed to help. And it's just like it's like a very freeing period for them, right? I like everybody just like de-stresses, and it's not about just learning stuff. It's also about reviewing, and it's like it's very sweet that they included that, and it's like, oh, that's nice. And so Pink argues, this is a quote. So we're meant to be autonomous individuals, not individual automatons. That word. So we're designed to be type I, but outside forces, including the very idea that we need to be managed, have conspired to change our default setting and turn us into type X. if we update the environments we're in, not only at work, but at school and at home, and if leaders recognize both the truth of the human condition and the science that supports it, we can return ourselves and our colleagues to our natural state. This is D. Pink, 2009, Drive, Chapter 5, page 18. So, again, I agree with Pink's beliefs that this change will be better, healthier, and smarter in the long run for our students and ourselves, of course. So, and besides, even if it wasn't, even if we changed everything to type I and everything was like, oh, well, like it didn't, like, oh, it didn't produce as good outcomes. Like, I think, like, I think we still be in a far better place than we are now, you know? Like it's still better. It's healthier anyways. Yeah, those were my 5 things.